everyone, and welcome back to the Recycled Cottage and Garden. And I'm in an apartment. But we're just leaving the name because most people already know it. Okay, today I am putting up some flour, and I did have some in jars, but it just takes too many quart jars, and I'm not spending the money on the half-gallon size or anything like that. I don't use that much flour. That's just me. I don't do a whole lot of baking. But I've gotten all of my all-purpose flour in Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers. These are oxygen absorbers. And they'll come with a little thingy in there that's colored. And let me tell you something about the oxygen absorbers. There's a lot of videos on YouTube that show you how to do it. I'm going to show you how I do it, which is kind of on the cheap, but it works just as well. There's no problem with it. So, you don't have to have a lot of fancy tools. You just need oxygen absorbers, jars, if you choose to use those, and you can use any kind of a glass jar with a good fitting lid. So you could recycle, say, your big jars of spaghetti sauce. Save those. You can store beans in them with nothing. You can put oxygen absorbers if you want to, but to me that's kind of a waste. But anything that would go bad over time, like flour, rice, well, actually, if it's white rice, you can use oxygen absorbers. Brown rice you don't want to, so that's best kept in the freezer for any long period of time. But I want to show you what I do. Okay, I bought these oxygen absorbers are packed 10 in a package. There is one company, one person on Amazon that sells them individually packed. So if you're not doing a whole lot, that might be a good option. I'll put links below for a lot of stuff. Okay. And then you need Mylar bags. I bought a package of 1 gallon bags. I don't need to store 1 gallon at a time. So what I do, this is one I already fixed. I cut them in half and I seal the sides so I have an open top. Much easier at this point to store flour. This holds a little over a quart comfortably. Even though technically it would be a half gallon, if you're dealing with a quart jar, which is what I had some flour in, it almost filled it, and I could put another cup of flour, about a half a cup to a whole cup in it. Okay, so what my process is I'll take the Mylar bag, the 1 gallon one, and they come in a variety of sizes. You can even get 5 gallon ones if you're storing stuff in those big buckets. Although where people put those, I don't know if they, apparently they have basements and things. I don't. And I don't want to store that much anyway. Okay, so what I do is I fold it in half, and then I cut it in half. And just to show you how quick and easy this is to prepare your bags. Okay, it's now open on 2 sides, the 2 long sides, and it's factory sealed on the ends. What I do is I take my iron, you put it on the hottest setting that there is. It literally takes seconds, okay? Put it on the edge, maybe about 1/4 inch or so wide. Just pick it up and move it. And make sure you go the whole length. Now, no, it's not going to look as pretty as their factory seal, but it does work. Okay, that's all you got to do. Some people use those flat irons for your hair. If you have one, you could use that. I'm not sure how they work. I've not used one. If you have a vacuum seals, like a seal-a-meal machine, you can use that. Do not use the vacuum part of it, because the oxygen absorber will do that part for you. And yes, I am doing the long side so that this is totally sealed now. But because I cut these down to a basically a little over a quart size, even though it says half a gallon. I'm not sure if they're doing dry measures or what, but okay, I just cut one of the small ends off. The rest of it is totally sealed, okay? And then you put in your flour. Let me see if my measuring cup is dry here. Let's get it out of here. That'll work. Okay, let's see if my funnel is dry. It's probably not. Oh yes, it is. Good. Okay, now I started out with them with flour in jars. So that was real easy to take and put this upside down over the jar, turn the whole thing up, and tap the side of the jar to get the flour to go down in there. However, if you don't have that, you're just starting and you don't want to put them in quart jars, or you don't have any, that's fine. Take one of your bags, open it up, put a funnel in it. It doesn't have to be one like this, but you want a wide mouth, you know, not the little tiny narrow ones. There's a little water in there. Get that out. I just washed it, so it's a little damp. Okay, and then you put this over it, and then put that out of the way. You take your open bag of flour. I cut it lower than what it would normally be because I'm going to empty it all out of here. This is self-rising flour. And then it just goes straight in. What you want to do is try and keep the flour off of the part you're going to iron and seal. I'm not sure that you would get a very good seal if it, and squish your bag a little bit so that it goes everywhere it's supposed to. Okay, you want to leave about 1 inch to 1.5 inches at least. If you're using one of those seal-a-meal things, you may need to leave a little longer. I'm not sure. You'll have to play with it and see. That's good. Just put that in there. Let me move that out of the way. Hang on just a sec. Okay, there we go. Now, sorry, I'm not as prepared as I thought I was. Okay, so now we've got the flour in the bag. This is when you would want to get all of your bags of flour, stack them up to where they're not going to fall over and dump out. And you would, at that point, make sure you have all the ones you're going to do of flour or whatever else that you want to seal up in a Mylar bag. I would not put anything really pokey in it. It may cut through. There are certain kinds of pasta that would cut through, so be careful on that. If you're just doing, you know, the small pieces, the elbows and what have you, that's probably fine. I would probably not want to do like the bow ties or really pokey things because they could cut through it and then you don't have, you've lost it. Okay, let me see if I can show you. Okay, this is about a finger length long. That's probably about 3 inches. That's all I'm going to put in it. I don't use a lot of flour at once when I do use it. And I only got the self-rising because there's some biscuit recipes I want to try. Okay, make sure you wipe the inside down so that you don't have flour residue on it so that you get a good seal. and then pull it and fold it over. I'm going to fold it toward me so that I can do this. The reason for the folding it over is so you can lay it down gently and you don't get a poof of flour coming out and ruining your seal. Okay, let me do that. There we go. So let me do that again where you can see it. Learned this by trial and error. Fold it over and kind of hold it, and then gently lay it down. It doesn't have to be, oh, there's a small poof. Don't want a poof. Thank you very much. Come on. It decided to poof more. Okay. Let's try that again. Lay it down gently to where it will go down. There we go. And then again, take your iron and it melts it. Do not do this on the vacuum seal bags. It will mess up your iron because they're plastic. And then you're sealed. Now, if you've got your oxygen absorber in there, and then you seal like regular all-purpose flour, after a while, it will have, the oxygen absorber will have sucked all the oxygen up. And it may get hot to the touch, so just be aware of that. And then what you want to do is you want to label it. I have been doing something a little different with my labels. Now you can write right on this package if you want to. That's perfectly fine. One of the things that I've been doing, this is a can jar I did last week of some beef soup starter. It's got some beef, some tomato, onion, celery, and carrot. Okay, it's just extra stuff I had in my refrigerator. It needed to be cooked or put up or something, so I decided to put it up. What I've done lately is I have been using strips of contact paper. You know, you get your contact paper. This is just a leftover piece I have. And the back side has these little lines on them. I cut off one line at a time. And I'm using that on my jars now because once I open a jar and use it, I can reuse this lid for dry goods. Okay, I don't think I have very many that would take a wide mouth, but I have plenty that will take a narrow mouth or a regular mouth as they call it. So you do not want to use the lids for pressure canning again or water bath canning again. You may not get a good seal because it'll be indented. However, if you wash them really, really well and there's nothing, you know, stuck on it or it doesn't look yucky or something, you can reuse them when you're just storing something in a jar, like beans or rice or whatever. Even if you're using an oxygen absorber in that jar, like for white rice. Do not do it for brown rice. Brown rice has too much oil in it. Okay. So that's what I'm doing as far as labeling, and I'll label these packages as well with that kind of a label just because that's what I'm doing. Why do I have contact paper, you ask? Well, you might ask. I don't know. This is part of my storage. I don't have a lot of storage space in here, in this apartment. So what I'm doing is I am putting extra foodstuffs, no matter how they're packaged, in banker's boxes. Now, they're the kind of boxes that you fold them together. Very easy to do. I always reinforce the edges with tape because I'm putting some fairly heavy items in them. They're great for storing anything pretty much. They're an easy size to move around. think about, if you're not familiar with them, and I don't have one I can get hold of real quick here. If you're not familiar with them, they're in like the office supply sections and shipping sections at a Walmart. And they come in a pack of 10 or a pack of 3. 3 of them are $10. 10 of them are $16. If you have stuff to store, it's excellent. They're also excellent for if you're moving, because they're a good size that most anybody can pick up, even if you fill it full of books. And we all know books are heavy. I'm not talking paperbacks, we're talking hardbacks. Trust me, I know all that kind of stuff because I've done it several times. Used to use liquor boxes. Those are good too. The nice thing about the banker's boxes is they also come with a lid. You don't have to fold flaps in. It's a lid. Also, the banker's boxes are rated to store up to 350 pounds in a stack of them. Most people use these, office people have, they have files from, previous years or whatever that they need to just store now because they don't have room in their office for a lot of other stuff. So old files, they'll stick in there and they'll hold a file folder sitting upright this way. Okay. And you can fill up, it's a lot. They are, I want to say they're, whatever the width of well, I guess like 11 to 12 inches wide on the inside, and maybe 16 or so inches long, and deep enough to hold the files without crushing anything. Okay, so let me just take those off. Anyway, you can store just about anything in them. I've been putting quart jars in them so that I know they're not going to fall off a shelf. What I do is I measure the height of the jar, and then I cut them down to give them about a 1-inch headspace above the jar. And that way I can still stack some if I need to. But you can stack up to one stack of boxes up to 350 pounds. So you don't have to count the bottom one, but up to 350 pounds within all of the boxes on top of it. So that's a good storage way for quart jar things, or you could do pint jars, but you'd want to cut those down even more, and you're cutting them in half. So for pint jars, what I would suggest is if you get boxes, or if you go to the post office, or if you go online to the post office, get the large priority flat rate boxes. You can put, I forget how many. If they are the narrow mouth pint jars, I think you can fit 12 in there, 10 to 12. Now, we're not supposed to use those boxes except for mailing things. So it's always good to get some that have been used. Ask your friends. But if you can't find that, I've used them. It's an option, but then they get reused for mailing things. So there you go. But that gives, you can put a pint in there and you've still got about a 1/2 inch or so of headspace. So you can stack several of those boxes, not as many as probably the banker's boxes, but it's a little less expensive way to go, because if you do the banker's boxes and you're only doing pints, you don't want to double stack them. Please don't double stack pints. Some people will do half pints. I don't have a huge problem with that. Just put a piece of cardboard or something in between. A lot of people will do like a thin sheet of plywood type stuff in between pints. I don't like that idea either, because it's still the weight. Even though it's evenly distributed, you've still got the same weight pressing down on the bottom jars. So I don't like doing that. You can make your own decisions on that. That's up to you. I've seen some people do it. I've seen Patera at Appalachia's Homestead. They use like a sheet of real thin 1/4 inch plywood type stuff between jars, and all the jars have to be the same height. And then different heights can go on top. I'm just not comfortable doing that. I don't want all that work and all that food to be lost just because I'm trying to save space somewhere. I'd rather put in another shelf. And I have done that before when I had a place to do that. These days I'm using the metal racks. You can get them at Walmart in varying sizes. They hold a ton of weight. And they do it very well. I prefer the narrower racks to the wider ones. I have noticed, I have one wide one that's like 36 to 40 inches long. The top shelf, I've got canned goods, like the big cans of pears and peaches and, just stuff I use all the time on the top. And I'm seeing that bowing a bit, or flexing a bit. It's just minimal amount, and it's because I used a 3-layer can stacker. I've since taken the big cans of peaches off of it. They were the great big ones. And just using just regular size vegetable and fruit on that rack. But I prefer the smaller ones that are like 24 by 36-ish, 30-ish, something like that. They're the smaller ones. They're also cheaper. And if you want it taller, you can do that. Buy 2 of them. You can put more of the poles together and stack up. But you might, if you go very high, you might want to get some type of a bracket thing from the hardware store that will fit around the poles on the backside and screw into the wall. And preferably into a stud if you can find at least one of them. Because you want to make sure it doesn't fall over. Okay? But you can put a lot of weight on those. What else did I want to say? I'm going to put a link down below for a new lady that I found. I haven't really watched but this one video, but it's very, very good. It is things to not do when you're canning in case I haven't covered something, in case I've forgotten something. The main thing is don't skip a step. Sometimes we do, but we don't want to. We want to do it right, because if we've skipped a step, it doesn't come out right, and we don't notice it. It does open the door for your food going bad, possibly being contaminated, you getting sick. You don't want that. So I'm going to link a video, her video on this particular thing. She may be good all the way around. I have not noticed. I did add in one new, I think I told you about this. I did add in one new channel, which is Sutton's Days. She follows, and I put in the link to the National Home Food Preservation Group. One thing I will say about the National Home Preservation Food Group, I don't agree with everything that they say. I'm a little bit of a rebel canner. I'm very cautious about what I do choose to rebel can. It's called that because we're canning something that, the powers that be, the FDA or whatever, and the Home Food Preservation Group do not agree with. They don't think it's safe. Sometimes they will say that because they have not done the testing on it. I'm going to try some things this year that I have not done before. One of the things that they talked about was don't recan food that's comes to you in a can. And what they kept going on and on about in their article, this is the Home Food Preservation Group, was, well, why, you've already bought it, it's in a can, why do you want to buy jars and lids and go through all that work and the expense and yada, yada, yada to put it in jars? Well, my number one reason would be because jars will preserve it a hell of a lot longer than the can. Okay? Although cans do a great job. One of the things I want to can that is pure Rebel canning, I'm not suggesting it to anyone. You do your own research. But I'm going to try canning some butter and see how that goes. I was considering buying some cheese in jars, like they have the Cheese Whiz and stuff, or the nacho cheese stuff. But that's pretty pricey and the prices keep going up. Well, when I went to the food pantry this week, yes, I go to the food pantry. My budget is very small. They had some number 10 cans. That's the ones like this big around, okay, and yay tall. They had some of the nacho cheese sauce like restaurants and so forth use. And you could take whatever you wanted out of this cart. I took 2 cans of the 4 that were in there of the cheese sauce. Now, Homestead Tessie does the same. She gets the big number 10 cans and then she recans it in the size jars that they will use, usually a pint. So I'm going to try that as well. Now, that is considered Rebel canning. However, Homestead Tessie does do butter as well as the cheese, and she pressure cans them. So, and I think the butter is more because it's a dairy product. They haven't really tested that stuff out to see what it will do. And I'm only going to do it in pints, or half pints. So I don't think there's a problem with the butter, especially since it's pressure canned. There are some older videos out there that don't pressure can it. They just turn it upside down. And they just melt it, and pour it in the jar and put the lid on and turn it upside down. No, that is not safe. Not safe at all. So be cautious. Do your research. Okay? I would not advise any of this stuff for somebody who's brand new to canning. Now the cheese sauce, she heats it and puts it, and it's all hot. Your jar's hot, your lids are hot, your food is hot, and then it's going in the pressure canner that's hot. Okay? You got to have everything hot and everything sterilized. You want to be very, very sure. If you have a dishwasher, praise be to God, because that will make this a whole lot easier. I don't have one. So once you've got your jars hot, everything's clean, everything's hot, everything's dry, but hot. And you may need to wear some gloves for this. Then I've got to watch your video again just to be sure, since I finally did get some cheese stuff. Everything gets heated up, poured in the hot jar, lids put on, rings put on, and it goes in the canner. I don't remember the time frame. You can go to Homestead Tessie's channel. I've listed that in a video before about how she does that. If you are new to canning, please don't. Please don't do Rebel canning until you are very, very confident in how the processes work and you're very confident in what you're doing. That's my disclaimer on this. I am not telling you to do this. Do your own research. Okay? Now, I've shown you how to do the Mylar bags. You can do it with, if you're doing anything with a leavening agent, you know, the baking powder, baking soda, anything like that, do not use an oxygen absorber. Do not use an oxygen absorber on anything that has fats, high moisture content. You have to be less than 10% moisture content to use an oxygen absorber. So don't put jerky in one. Don't put nuts in it. Nuts have way too much oil. I was considering it, and then saw how she was doing it. She was toasting pecans in the oven and then canning them in jars, and I'm like, wait a minute. There's a lot of oil in nuts, including pecans. Some nuts are oily there, so I just keep mine in the freezer. I would suggest that if you were wanting to do, preserve some jerky, you could put it in a Mylar bag, put it in whatever you want, store it in the freezer. The Mylar bag will keep it from getting like ice crystals or, weird stuff in there. That's the nice thing about Mylar bags, because you can vacuum seal it if you have the vacuum sealer machine. You just want to get as much air out as possible so that you can, just put it in, just like you would your meats that you want to store in the freezer. If you're putting them in a vacuum sealed package, they're not going to get the ice crystals and stuff in there that makes it nasty. Might still be edible. I personally wouldn't eat it if it's freezer burnt. Dogs might not care, cats might not care, but I'm not eating it because it doesn't taste good. I tried that once just to see what would, oh, it was nasty. It tasted really weird. So one more thing that I thought about this morning as I was cleaning out the quart jars that the regular flour came out of. And I don't know if I mentioned this, so I'm going to mention it now. If you're cleaning especially narrow mouth jars, because you can't get your hand down in there, get yourself a baby bottle brush. They're soft. They're like $2 or so at Walmart in with all the baby stuff. And it goes all the way down into the bottom of it. You can swish it around and it cleans out anything that's in there. Because you don't want residue left for when you go to use it the next time. So there's your tip for the day there. And I hope this is helpful to someone. I'm going to put one other link down below, and that is for a preparedness channel. Really nice guy. He is an Army veteran. He was in Intel. Most of his videos, which he does 2 or 3 a day, in between things, he's looking stuff up online and finding out what he can find out. He does a lot about whatever's in the news and tries to get you the best information that he can. His wife is from Russia. She helps him translate when he looks at online information from Russia, Ukraine, in that part of the area. So if you're interested in any of that, that's there. She's got some great recipes too. She's done a few videos on recipes. His name's Pinball Preparedness. Pinball was his call name in the Army, so he just uses that. They live in Tennessee somewhere. He talks about a lot of different things, but the one today just really struck me, which was there's a company that does supply chain for major companies in this country. All different kinds of things, but a lot of it food. And they put out a list of foodstuffs that may be in short supply, partially due to packaging issues because they can't get the packaging. If you've noticed, you may be noticing less milk on the shelves. I have noticed Not that I buy them usually, but there are less cans of biscuits on the shelf. Things like that. And I know that the baby formula is also having the same issue. Part of that's because it's milk. Why there's a shortage with cows and milk, I don't know. I don't understand that. Packaging issues, I can understand. Food issues in general, because most of our fertilizer did come from Russia. Ingredients for the fertilizer. And if you're talking the backyard farmer, you find somebody that's got cows or horses and, make your own compost and do that. However, the food that you'll buy in the grocery store is usually not from a local farmer. It's going to be a big agricultural farm. And they're not able to fertilize just with, cow manure, horse manure, rabbit pellets, whatever. They have to use, because of how much they are growing and the way that it's done these days, they have to use commercial fertilizers. So I would highly suggest, just to be sure you have enough for whatever might be coming up these days, put some extra food back. The Mormons do at least a year's worth of food for their entire family. That's probably a good marker. If you feel drawn to stock up more than that, go for it. I look at it this way. I'm not looking at a doomsday. I don't think we're going to get nuked. I could be wrong, but I don't think we're going to get nukes over here. There's just no point to it. It makes no sense. Unless they're just all stupid, and that's entirely possible. But what I do see is there are some shortages. Not many at this point here. Some places are worse. We know there's going to be a wheat shortage. Because a lot of our wheat also comes from Russia. Why? When we have plenty of places to grow wheat, but there are droughts in certain areas that don't normally have them, and it's where they grow a lot of the corn and wheat and other things like other grains. Be aware of that. And Pinball's talked about a lot of that kind of stuff. It's like, he's not a doom and gloom person. He doesn't try to hype you up and make you scared to death. But he does try and give you a true report on what he's seeing, what he's reading, and he tries to find out sources that are not the mainstream media, because they won't tell you much of anything. So, that's useful anyway. They're more concerned with the Kardashians than anything else. That's my opinion on news. I think that's all I'm going to say today. But Pinball's not a doom and gloom person. He's just an aware person. Being an intel, I think he would have had to have learned that. And he's very much an American patriot, if that interests you. So I highly recommend him. You don't have to watch all of his videos. If one comes up that looks interesting to you, just watch that one. I have several people that I don't watch all of their videos because not all of them are anything I'm interested in. That it's just not me. But there are some things that they put out that I enjoy. So I pick and choose what I watch, what I feel like listening to, what I feel like watching. And I'm sorry, I know I should keep looking at the screen, and I keep looking away. I'm just not really good at this yet. So anyway, that's my 2 cents worth for today. I'll put links below for important things. And I hope this helps someone, and perhaps you can gather up some more information without it being all doom and gloom and we're all going to die. And no, I don't think we are. People have survived. They survived Hiroshima and Nagasaki. People survived. So, we do what we can. I would say if you are a prepper, or if you want to be a prepper, be very careful about who you tell what to as far as what you have. I've already had an incident that didn't make me happy. Someone I told, she wanted to see my pantry that I'd set up in the closet. Well, and it looks like a ton of stuff because it's packed into a little tiny closet. It's not that much. But it's just, I probably should not have done that because she said something to somebody else about how I like to can all the time. Well, I don't can all the time. I can when I have an overflow of food that needs to be something done with it so it doesn't go bad and have to get thrown out. And just so that you guys will understand, my game plan, if push comes to shove, there are food shortages, and we have 32 people in this building. Might be only 30 right now. But about that, 32 is the most it'll hold. This is a small building. I can pretty much guarantee you that other than one other person, nobody here stores up extra anything. I don't want to see people starve. Now, am I going to hand them food to take back to their apartment? No. What I will do is take my biggest pots and go to the community kitchen with something to start. Even if it's just broth, at least it's homemade, chicken broth. And even if we don't have that for some reason, there's bouillon. I have some of that. I don't want people to starve. I don't want people to go hungry. But my rule, and I'll make big pots of soup. My rule is going to be, if you're allergic to something, you tell me ahead of time and I'll try and make a small batch for you. But my rule is also going to be, if you want some soup, you bring something to put in it. I don't care if it's an onion. I don't care if it's one potato, one can of something. I don't care. You bring something to contribute to it. I think there's a children's story about that. So if you don't want to contribute to it, then you go on your merry way and figure out how you're going to eat. If for some reason we don't have enough in the stores to go around, or the prices get so high that nobody can afford them. This is a HUD apartment building for seniors and disabled people. None of us have a very big income. Most of us are living on Social Security only or disability only. And our rent is based on that. It's 30% of whatever your income is. One of the nice things about this place is we don't have to pay utilities. So everything's electric. We don't have to pay an electric bill. We don't have to pay for water or sewer. We don't have to pay for trash service. Not saying that couldn't change at some point depending on what was going on, but so far that's holding true. Most of us are here because we can't afford anything else, either here or anyplace else. Most places around the country, even if you live in a HUD apartment where it's only charging you 30% for the rent, you still have to pay your own utilities. Water and trash might be included, but your electricity will not. So, at least all the ones that I've looked at have been that way. So I'm in a good place as far as that goes. My budget is very small, even for the number of years that I worked and paid into the system. I'll be real honest. Even with the increase this year, my Social Security check is $875 for a month. Out of that comes my rent, my car insurance, my internet service. I do not have TV. I don't have any of those fancy extra things like that. I have to pay for maintenance on my vehicle. I have to pay for car tags, which here in Colorado, because now next year they should go down, hopefully, we'll see. It's $170 a year for the car tag. Now, if it got to where I couldn't afford it, I could get rid of the car. If I don't have to go anywhere, but here in town, I could get rid of the car. We do have a free bus service for in town, even going up to Crested Butte. I'm told there's one, probably not real convenient, but I'm told there's one that will take you to, at least seniors, to Montrose or Grand Junction, which Montrose is an hour away, Grand Junction is 2 hours away. If you have to go for medical purposes, there's a way to get there. Veterans have it better. There's a service for the veterans. You do have to schedule it some weeks in advance, but they can get you to where you need to go. Not every state has that. Texas does not. I can tell you that. They have VA hospitals, but if you're not close to one, you got to figure out how you're going to get there, because there's no buses that'll just directly drive you there and come get you and bring you home. Here in town, we have what's called the senior bus. It's for seniors only, or disabled, and that will take you. And you do have to call ahead and say, I need to go to thus and such on this day at this time, or somewhere in there, and they will come pick us up right at the front door and take us to where we need to go. You need to have a phone so you can call them when you're ready to be picked up. And that's whether you're going to the doctor or the grocery store or whatever else. So there is a way to do it. I'm also only 2 blocks from the grocery store, so that makes it handy in case, buses aren't available that day or something. So I don't know who all is listening or watching, but I'll say this. Unless you're only on disability, which is usually less than Social Security, I doubt you're getting less than I am, because by the time you pay for all this stuff and then your needs of, and yes, I do have a SNAP card. They've lowered it now because COVID is starting to go away. They've lowered it this month by about $40. I was getting, my base part of food stamps is $40, and the SNAP card part, because of COVID, was $250. This is per month. But that's been lowered to $210. I foresee it going lower as COVID goes away, and that's fine. So I've been purchasing what I can with that, and I'm not buying extravagant stuff. I'm buying canned goods to put in the pantry closet. I've bought some meat that I have in the freezer when it was on sale. I tend to buy, I don't just frivolously spend it all. Okay, I don't. I never have. I buy the most of what I can get at the least price, because when it's on sale, if it's a good sale, I know I'm not going to get it any cheaper. So we're running up on almost an hour. I'm sorry. I had stuff on my mind and I wanted to get it out there. Things for you to think about. There's nothing wrong with storing food up ahead of time and keeping a prepper pantry, as they say. However you want to word it is fine. However much you choose to store, or if you choose to store none. But if you're interested in canning, I can't believe you're not interested in storing some food. Look at it this way, if no other way, even if nothing ever happens. You've at least got a pantry with food in it that's good for a number of years. And it's not going to go down in price. I doubt that seriously. Usually when you end up with droughts and things that are affecting a big part of the country and a lot of part of the country, especially the central area, right down the middle, that's where a lot of grains are grown. They're experiencing drought conditions. So that's worrisome for the farmers there. We're also going to see that, and that's why you're seeing the price of flour going up, and other things that it's the price of pasta a lot of times is going up. So just things to think about, and check out my links that I'm going to put below. I'll probably go ahead and put in links to my favorite canning people again, in case I've got somebody new here, and just some good information to have out there. Pinball is about the only newsy kind of person that I listen to, because he tries his best to find correct information. Yes, he gives his opinions. That's everybody. We all do that. But he's not a doom and gloom person. He's like, we're going to survive this kind of person. He has every intention of surviving whatever gets thrown at us. So he's probably in a better position than most of us in that he has a piece of property that he can put in big gardens. He's got fruit trees, things like that. And yes, some of them are very small because he hasn't been there very long. But he's not stupid either. He's a very smart man. So anyway, I'm going to end this now before this doesn't show up right. Hopefully this thing will have recorded properly. If the picture doesn't go along with the words, just ignore it. Just listen. Okay? It's all best I can say because I don't know what else to do with the Chromebook. Okay. Everybody have a great day. Have a great Easter weekend if you're celebrating Easter. Mine's not till next week because I'm Orthodox. So have a great, wonderful holiday weekend. That's probably 90% of the people out there that I know. And keep on keeping on. Do what you do. Learn more. Learning is always a good thing no matter what the subject matter, especially if it's something that interests you, if it's something that's needful. Think about what your plans are if everything went to hell in a handbasket. Who do you want to take care of? How do you want to do that? Like I said, I'll open a soup kitchen, but you better be contributing something. Okay. Thanks for joining me for today, and I'll see you around next time. I've got some cleaning up to do here in the kitchen, and I think I'm going to can up the potatoes that are starting to overflow in the refrigerator. I also get a grocery bag of food every week from a place called Mountain Roots, and it's all locally grown organic fruits and vegetables, occasionally some cheese, occasionally some meat. And right now they're giving me a plethora of potatoes, so they've got to go in jars because I can't eat that many all at once. And I'm not wasting food. I may need it to help feed other people. That's my thoughts on it. Y'all have a great weekend. Bye.